최근 EU에서는 탄소국경조정제도 CBAM이라는 법을 공포하였고 2023년 10월부로 전환기간에 도입하였습니다. 이에 대해서 새로운 정보들이 EU의 공식 웹사이트에 발표가 되고 있는데요. 최근 업데이트가 자주 되고 있으니 관심 있는 분들 또는 법적으로 해당이 되신다고 생각되는 분들은 이 웹사이트를 자주 방문해서 새로운 정보를 얻으실 필요가 있다고 생각합니다. 특히나 CBAM에 대한 정보를 공식적으로 설명하기 위해서 웨비나를 EU에서 진행했습니다. 바로 이 부분인데요. 탄소국경조정제도에 해당하는 이 6개의 산업군들의 각각의 주요한 정보들을 표시를 하였고, 또한 최근에는 전환기간에서 반드시 알아야 될 정보들에 대한 웨비나를 진행하였습니다. 그래서 이에 대해서 한번 같이 살펴보면서 설명드리도록 하겠습니다. 여기를 클릭하면 플레이가 되는데요.
I hope that you can hear us. We will start the webinar very shortly. Maybe as a few words, welcome to this webinar on the CBAM Transitional Registry. This event is organized by the Directorate General Taxation and Customs Union, DG TaxUD, of the European Commission. My name is Maxime Monléon, and I'm part of the TaxUD CBAM team. And again, we would like to thank you for being here. In the past weeks, we have organized a series of webinars focusing on the sectors covered by the CBAM, namely the cement, aluminium, fertilizers, electricity, hydrogen, and 2 webinars on iron and steel. Today is the first webinar on the transitional registry, and it will introduce you to the registry and focus on how to use the registry and its functionalities and how to get access to it. Other webinars will follow later with some sector-specific content. There are many participants in this meeting, so please let me quickly introduce you a few rules about the webinar. Please make sure that you appear in Zoom with your name and affiliation. If needed, please update your name by following the steps shown on the screen. And this is very useful for us when addressing the questions that you will send us, and so that we can address them later during the question and answer session. You may have noticed already that as a participant, you are muted during the webinar. You may write questions in the chat. The chat is available for all participants to write their questions. Please note that the questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Please also note that we are recording this webinar and that you are not allowed to record it yourselves. However, the recording will be made public on the TaxUD website, on the CBAM dedicated webpage, so you will be able to watch it after the webinar as many times as you want. During this webinar, we invite you to focus your questions on the CBAM transitional registries and no other aspect except for the introduction, some general reminders of the reporting obligations will be covered during that webinar. Let me also stress this point because in the previous webinars, some participants had questions on the definitive period of the CBAM, but due to time constraints, we will most likely only respond to the ones that are focused on the transitional registry. Like I said, it's very important to note that the presentations and the recording will be made available on the website, but they are only meant to help you prepare for the CBAM, and in that case, for this webinar, use the transitional registry. In no circumstances, they can be interpreted as definitive views expressed by the European Commission, and they are not legally binding.
네, 이 부분이 좀 중요한 것 같은데요. 이 웨비나는 CBAM에 대한 일반적인 설명을 위한 웨비나로서 법적인 효력을 갖고 있는 웨비나는 아니라는 겁니다. 그래서 설명을 위한 웨비나이다 라고 보시면 되겠습니다. 저 역시도 이 웨비나를 보면서 제가 해석되는 대로 여러분들께 중요한 정보라고 생각되는 것을 알려드리는 것이지, 제가 해석하고 설명드린 부분이 이후에 법적 효력을 갖는 것을 아님을 말씀드리고 싶습니다.
Let me just navigate you through the objective of this session. Next slide, please. With this webinar, we would like to present as an introduction, some rules about the reporting obligations. For those of you who attended one or several webinars in the past or have watched the recordings online, there will be useful reminders. But for those who have not, I think we believe it's very important for first step. And then for part 2 and part 3, we will dive into the content, the main objective of this webinar. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Maria Elena Scopio, the Director for Indirect Taxation and Tax Administration at DigiTaxSud, to say a few words. Please, Elena, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning. I hope you can all hear me, and I would just like to welcome you to this new webinar.
Yes, we can.
Super, thanks a lot. On the transitional registry. I imagine that several of you have already participated in the previous sectoral webinars, so I am not going to repeat what CBAM is. You will know that we are all here together to try to implement this in the best way possible, considering that there is no planet B and we cannot just water down our ambition by risking carbon leakage in other countries that are not following what we are doing. It has to be said that we are seeing more and more countries that are interested in following our example, and probably not even to follow us, but they had that in mind, because this crisis is unprecedented and has to be tackled immediately. So what you are experiencing with CBAM, what you will be experiencing with CBAM, is only going to prepare you for something that is going to be more expanded in the future. And it's going to give you an advantage if you want. So I would try to take it in a very positive way, because more will be to come. For this purpose, we are today trying to explain you together with our colleagues how to deal with the formalities during the transitional period. You're going to be explained how to access the CBAM transitional registry. You will be reminded that that obligation is not immediate. It will only have to be dealt with next year. But it is important to get ready, to be prepared. And should there be any issue, don't worry, because this is a learning curve, but this is a learning phase for everyone. Just let me finish by saying that this, like all the other webinars, will be recorded, as you have heard, and that you will be able to find it in the dedicated web page that will be continuously updated and will also have additional material for learning and for using the system. This will be translated in all major spoken languages in the world. And should you have additional questions, we hope we will be able to cater for your doubts. We're all in this together. We are also trying from the start to make it work. I only would like to add that we are all at your disposal again, me personally on top. So without waiting too much more, I would like to leave you to my colleagues who will guide you through this very important aspect of the CBAM procedure. Thank you very much and have a nice webinar.
네, 지금 설명 중에서 우리가 주목해야 될 부분은 이 CBAM이 왜 만들었는지에 대해서는 기존의 웨비나에서 많이 설명을 했다라는 건데요. 요점을 얘기했죠. 행성 B는 없다, 플래닛 B는 없다. 이제 지구가 유일한 행성이기 때문에 이 내에서 탄소가 노출되는 것, 카본 리키지, EU에서 EU가 아닌 곳으로 탄소가 누출되는 것을 막기 위한 거죠. 탄소 누출이라 함은 탄소 배출량이 많이 나오는 산업군들이 EU의 법규 때문에 EU에서 생산을 안 하고 non-EU 국가로 이전해서 거기서 탄소를 많이 내뿜게 된다는 거죠. 그러면 이것은 EU 내에서는 탄소 배출량이 줄었다고 볼 수 있겠으나 다른 국가의 탄소 배출을 시키는 거기 때문에 결과적으로는 행성에는 도움이 되지 않는다. 즉 지구라는 행성에는 도움이 되지 않는다는 뜻이죠. 그래서 탄소 누출이다. EU 측 입장에서 봤을 때는 그런 걸 막기 위한 것이 CBAM이고 CBAM이고 앞으로 CBAM은 더욱 확대될 것이다. 그리고 지금 현재는 트랜지셔널 피리어드 전환기간이기 때문에 모두가 시범으로 운영해 보면서 배우는 것이기 때문에 너무 많은 걱정을 하지 말고 대신에 웹비나들을 잘 보면서 익히면 되겠다는 그러한 인트로덕션이었습니다. 계속해서 보도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you very much, Elena, for providing us with a great reminder of the rationale behind the CBAM. Now, next slide, please move. Let's move to the general overview of the reporting obligations. So, maybe as a first reminder, the CBAM was officially adopted and entered into force in May this year. And in August, the EU also adopted the implementing regulation, which lays down the reporting rules for the transitional period. The transitional period started as 1st of October. The transitional period is a bit more than 2-year period, during which the CBAM will focus on two things: monitoring and reporting. Monitoring because, like Elena said, this is a learning phase for all of us, during which we will collect relevant information on the embedded carbon content of goods covered by the CBAM regulation and imported into the EU. The information we collect will help refine the rules applicable in the definitive phase. Basically, it is about rolling out of the system and preparing, preparing everyone, including ourselves and the member states authorities, for the smooth kicking of the definitive phase of the CBAM as from January 2026. The second aspect is reporting, because during that period, reporting declarants, essentially importers, will only need to comply with the reporting obligations. This is very important to stress that during the transitional period, there will be no financial adjustment and there will be no obligation for declarants to buy certificates, CBAM certificates, and surrender CBAM certificates during that period. However, the monitoring means that importers have to submit quarterly reports describing the embedded content, carbon content of the emissions of CBAM goods imported into the EU. And the CBAM reports will essentially contain the information as shown on the screen, and we provided further details on that content during the sector-specific webinars, and we encourage you to watch them if needed. Two last words on this. You may be wondering why the carbon price paid in the country of origin may need to be reported. It is also, even if there is no financial obligation during the transitional period. This is because importers may receive a deduction for the carbon price they paid during the definitive phase, and we need, during the first phase, the transitional one, to collect data already on the carbon price that exists in other countries, so that we learn about it and we can start the providing deductions as from 2026.
네, 지금 중요한 설명들을 했는데요. 지금 전환기간에 보고 의무가 있습니다. 전환기간이에 대한 설명을 했는데, 전환기간이라 하면은 2023년도 10월부터 시작을 해서 2025년 12월까지 약 2년여간에 걸친 기간입니다. 이 기간 동안에는 설명자에 의하면 두 가지 사항에 포커스를 맞추기로 했다고 하죠. 모니터링하고 레포팅입니다. 모니터링이라 하면 탄소 배출량, 여기 보면 직접 배출과 간접 배출이라고 하는데요. 보고 서식에 따라서 직접 배출량과 간접 배출량을 분기별로 보고를 해야 하는 거고요. 그렇지만 이 기간 동안에는 EU에서 인정받은 검증기관에 의한 검증은 받을 필요도 없고 CBAM 인증서를 구매할 필요도 없습니다. 이것은 이 전환기간 이후에 Definitive Period라고 실제 운영기간에 필요한 것들입니다. 여기서 강조한 것은 non-EU 국가들 중에서 탄소 관련된 법을 운영해서 탄소의 가격을 매기는 제도를 운영하고 있을 수 있습니다. 예를 들면 우리나라의 배출권 거래제 같은 것이 그것이죠. 그 배출권 거래제에 의해서 탄소 가격이 형성되고 있다면 그 가격에 대한 정보도 이 전환기간에 적어주기를 EU는 희망하고 있습니다. 그래서 각 나라들의 탄소 대략적 가격을 보고 2026년 1월부터 실적용 기간에 이를 어떤 식으로 조정할지에 대한 기본적 정보로서 활용한답니다. 현재의 해당 국가에서의 탄소 가격도 같이 보고해 주기를 바라고 있습니다. 네, 그 다음에 벌금에 관한 얘기를 했죠. 제재. 지금 그 전환기간 동안에는 레포팅을 해야 되는, 보고를 해야 되는 의무를 이행하지 않았을 때, 그때 보고 의무에 관한 제재가 적용될 수 있다고 합니다.
In the CBAM field. So of course, if we start from the operators of installation, these are the people managing the installation, producing the good, the CBAM goods in non-EU countries, and then goods which are later exported to the EU. Then we have the reporting declarants. So in that case, like I said, either the importer or the indirect customer representative, and they are in charge of collecting the information which are relevant for complying with the CBAM reporting obligations from the operators of installation, and they are responsible for submitting CBAM reports. Then we have national authorities. Two main national authorities, the customs authorities, they are in charge of informing the reporting declarants of their CBAM obligations, and they can check the EORI number of the importers, and they also provide relevant data to the Commission. Then we have the national competent authorities, still at member states level, and they are in charge of checking the CBAM reports and engaging in the dialogue with the reporting declarants, and ultimately they are responsible for ensuring the compliance with the CBAM rules and requirements. And like I said, as from 2025, for the definitive period as from 2026, they will start granting the status of authorized CBAM declarant. And finally, the European Commission. The European Commission is in charge of reviewing the CBAM reports submitted by the importers. Then the European Commission is also in charge of communicating to the national competent authorities a list of reports for which it has reasons to believe that they are not compliant with the CBAM rules. And with that help from the Commission, like I said, the national competent authorities will be in charge of ensuring the compliance with the rules. And as a general note, the European Commission is in charge of monitoring the implementation of CBAM. How is it, like I said, implemented? How is it progressing? And whether there are any risk of circumvention. But this is a snapshot. But beyond each and everyone's role, it is very important to stress that the CBAM, the implementation of CBAM, requires a regular dialogue and a communication between various actors. I mentioned between, of course, national authorities, the Commission, but also the reporting declarants. And it's very important to stress that important level of communication.
네, 이 슬라이드에서는 CBAM을 운영하는 전체 관계 조직도를 보여주고 있습니다. 먼저 EU 외에서 EU로 수출하는 제품을 만들어내는 기업이 있겠죠. 이 기업은 배출량 데이터를 보고자한테 줘야 되고 이 보고자가 보고를 하는데요. 이 보고자의 업무를 담당하는 기관이 두 곳이 있다고 합니다. 하나는 관세청이 되고요. 하나는 각 국가별로 지정된 주무관청이 나중에 보면 리스트가 나오는데 어쨌든 주무관청의 역할이 있을 것입니다. 관세청에서는 CBAM과 관련해서 관련된 등록 번호 등을 부여하는 절차를 담당하고요. CBAM에 들어가는 실제 배출량이 잘 기입되었는지 아닌지와 관련된 그리고 CBAM에서 요구하는 대로 모든 절차를 지켰는지에 대한 세부 사항은 이 각 국가별 관계 당국에서 관장을 한다고 합니다. 그러면 잘 제대로 보고됐는지 안 됐는지에 대한 결론을 바로 EC에서 보게 되는 거죠. 그래서 수입량과 CBAM과 관련된 양에 대해서 총괄적으로 EU 커미션에서 관리를 하게 됩니다.
The level of communication is also shown on that on this snapshot. Basically, how to report, and of course, my colleagues will provide further details on that. But this shows you, gives you a general overview of how it works. The CBAM reports will have to be submitted by the reporting declarants on the CBAM transitional registry, which is a standardized and secured electronic database developed and managed by the Commission to ensure the efficient implementation of the reporting obligations. That registry will also collect the information reported during the transitional period. It was deployed for the start of the transitional period on 1st of October this year. And the reporting declarants will be able to undertake the reporting as soon as they receive the credentials from the national competent authority where they are established, and as soon as the reporting period opens. For the first report, so October to December 2023 this year, the reporting period will open 1st January 2024. The transitional registry will also be used for communication between the various actors in the CBAM, between the Commission, between the national competent authorities, also with the reporting declarants. However, please note, as you can see on the screen, that the Commission will not dialogue with the reporting declarants. Only the national competent authorities via the registry and also the customs authorities, but this can also take place outside the registry in the usual and regular customs communication between customs authorities and the importers. Very important to stress that in no circumstances the information stored in that registry will be made accessible to non-users of the registry. It is not accessible to the public.
네, 지금 얘기한 것은 이 CBAM에 관련된 정보가 어떤 식으로 흘러가는지 또 각각의 액터들은 누구인지에 대한 도식인데요. 실질적 그 정보를 EU 외에 만드는 기업에서 제공을 하면 이 보고 임무자가 이 CBAM Transitional Registry라는 싱글 플랫폼에 정보를 제공을 합니다. 그리고 관세 당국도 역시 이곳에서 관련된 정보를 제공해서 정보를 볼 수 있고 각 국가의 담당 관청들도 이 레지스트를 통해서 볼 수 있고 유로피안 커미션도 역시 최종 모니터링 결과들을 이 트랜지셔널 레지스트리를 통해서 볼 수 있는 겁니다. 그래서 이 트랜지셔널 레지스트리가 바로 모든 역할자들 정보 교류의 장이 될 텐데요. 중요한 것은 EU 커미션은 이 레지스트리에 대한 정보를 보지 실질적으로 보고 의무자하고 직접적 커뮤니케이션을 안 한다고 강조를 하고 있습니다. 또 중요한 것은 이 레지스트리와 관련된 액세스 넘버를 부여받은 사람만 이 정보를 볼 수 있지 그 외의 사용자들은 이 안에 있는 데이터들을 볼 수 없다고 합니다.
All the data and all communication exchanges between the different users of the transitional registry will be kept secured and confidential. Very important to stress. And the registry will not be used for enforcement either, because the information collected during the transitional period will only serve to feed into the data analysis and collection during the transitional period. Of course, as you can imagine, that transitional registry will be used as a basis for the development and establishment of the CBAM registry, which will be used for the definitive period. So on this slide, you can find the timelines and of the reporting requirements during the transitional period. As a start, you have, as an importer, as a reporting declarant, 4 general rules to remember. First, there is the monitoring period. This is by default the calendar year. It can also be an alternative calendar, provided that certain conditions are met. And we provide some more details on that during the sector-specific webinars. The second is the quarter. The quarter is the period during which goods are imported into the EU, and for which the CBAM report will have to report the goods and the embedded emissions of the goods imported into the EU. Then we have the deadline to report. It is as a general rule, it is the end of the month following the past quarter. And then there is finally the fourth timeline, the fourth deadline to remember, which is the one to amend or correct the report one more month. However, as you can see on the screen, some flexibilities have been provided in the implementing regulation that I mentioned, the one governing the rules for the transitional period. For the first 2 CBAM reports, which are due respectively for the 31st of January and 30th of April, these 2 first CBAM reports will be, it will be possible for reporting declarants to amend and correct until the end of July 2024. And then after this deadline, the general rules that I mentioned will apply.
어느 기간에 대한 내용을 언제까지 보고하고 언제까지 수정할 수 있는지에 대한 타임테이블을 명확하게 알려준 것인데요. 처음 2023년 10월부터 12월까지에 대한 데이터는 내년도 1월, 2024년 1월 말까지 보고를 해야 됩니다. 수정은 2024년 7월까지 가능하다고 합니다. 그래서 강조한 것은 다만 이제 첫 기간 동안에는 실질적으로 보고하는 관련된 아이디라든지 여러 등록과 관련된 절차들에 대해서 설명을 하고 이 레지스트리의 보고 서식이 오픈되는 것은 2024년 1월 1일부터라고 합니다. 2024년 1월 1일까지는 지금부터 웹비나 등을 통해서 소개되는 레지스트리에 대한 내용을 잘 숙지하는 기간으로 삼으면 좋겠다고 얘기를 하네요.
CBAM dedicated webpage. We will update it very regularly, and we are currently in the process of updating it. You can find it online. And you will be able to log in as soon as you receive, like I said, the credential from the National Competent Authority. And now I will give the floor to my colleagues who will run you through the rest of the presentation on the CBAM Transitional Registry. Thank you.
네, 그리고 트랜지셔널 레지스트리와 관련된 실질적으로 전환기간 동안에 등록하는 등록소와 관련된 정보들은 이 CBAM 웹페이지에 좀 최근 업데이트되고 있으니 많은 관심을 갖기 바라고 지금부터는 CBAM의 전환기간 동안의 등록소에 어떻게 액세스할 수 있는지에 대한 설명을 한다고 합니다. 네, 우선 이 첫 번째 세션까지 내용을 여기서 마무리하고 두 번째 세션은 다음 편에 리뷰하도록 하겠습니다.